question, and yes, it is broken out. Minority is broken out as Black, Hispanic, Asian, and other. Currently, Black minorities are getting the majority of the contracts, not by much. Initially, women were getting more contracts, women-owned businesses, because that is a part of the group, minority and women-owned. But in recent years, like the latest EBO, Equal Business Opportunity Report, was just released in October, and those 1% more than white women businesses currently, but it is broken out by race.
Right before the questions, we've got like literally two or three more slides, so we can answer these few questions and then get through the slides and then answer more questions.
Okay.
I just want.
I'm sorry. We're going to share this presentation. By the way, this slide has too many words, but what I want to just highlight here, these are some of the examples of programs related to our affordable housing program. As Andrea mentioned, the housing division is part of the planning department, and we have a that's been growing over the past year or time. So some of the things that we're looking at are related to housing. A lot of times when we talk about affordable housing, folks think that we're building rental units, and that's a big part of it. But we're also trying to look at strategies to increase home ownership as well, affordable home ownership, which oftentimes is a big challenge. So recently, we've had 21 home buyer units that have been completed that are affordable to incomes of 80% or below of area median income, or AMI. So what that means is we have a figure that we don't publish. It's published for us, and it says what the area median income is. So it's basically, if you look right in the middle and you look at 50% of the people or the households that are making more money, 50% of households are making less money, right in the middle, that's kind of like the average income for a household. And so basically those units are, you take a fraction of that, 80% of that area median income, and that's what those units are meant for, folks making that amount of income every month. So, and what I want to highlight with a lot of these programs for home buyer, for rental housing, we have helped to fund through our Barnes Fund. This is our housing trust fund, where we offer competitive grants to nonprofit developers to help build new housing, affordable housing units, as well as to maintain. Some of that funding goes to maintaining existing affordable housing as well. And with all these programs, rental housing, home buyer housing programs, what we often look to do is to see how far the city's investment in your tax dollars can go to leveraging our money, so that the private sector, private developers, or through federal dollars also contribute. It's really a partnership. So oftentimes we look to see how much dollars, again, we're spending, how many units are being created, and how much investment private developers are contributing to that. And what we found is, since the inception of the Barnes Fund, I think about 10 years ago, is that we've spent tens of millions of dollars of this fund to help build and create more affordable housing stock, and the private sector has tenfold has contributed in this partnership, that they're spending their money as well, and that's really the way that we look at building new affordable housing units in the city. The city and our dollars can't do it all on our own. We need the private sector to help with that as well, and we're finding that's what the Barnes Fund, we think, is successful in doing that, in leveraging city-owned money in partnership with money from the federal government or through the private sector. One of the programs we have is called a mixed income pilot. That stands for pilot in lieu of taxes. That's kind of the last part of this slide. This is an example of a tool I just wanted to highlight where we don't have a lot of strategies in place for how do we get market rate housing. So that's not affordable. That's just a developer can build housing and charge whatever they want. How can we look at neighborhoods where we see a lot of that market rate housing, like in downtown, and how can we incentivize affordable housing in those neighborhoods. So the mixed income pilot program is one of the tools we have to help do that. It helps to incentivize affordable housing units that are mixed in with those market rate units. And we have an example of that on this slide with 901 MLK Boulevard. And I mentioned
That's the bottom slide, the bottom picture down there.
that big tower, yeah. And then some of the other pictures would just show some of the homes that are built through our community land trust. I mentioned that as another program that we have. That's a newer program. But basically with community land trust is we're able to work with the nonprofit communities and companies to basically help to build more like these single family type of products in neighborhoods. And it's a way for these units to remain affordable for a much longer time. We basically can purchase these properties, and then someone comes in, a home buyer comes in, is able to buy, and someone that is making a lower amount of income. And then if they're ready to sell that house after a couple of years, they build equity in that home, and they build that equity, and they could take that equity with them. But when they sell that home, the next home buyer, it could also be sold to someone that's making a lower income. This is a new tool. There's a lot of cities that are using it throughout the country, and we're starting to see some progress and some momentum around that community land trust tool. Next slide. So what I wanted to mention, we do have a couple of resources. We have a handout, I believe, as well that has some links. I don't believe it has this link, so I just wanted to highlight this for a moment. In the last year, we've been working on and improving what we call a housing dashboard. So if you go to the Planning Commission or Planning Department website, this is kind of what it looks like. If you scroll down, and there's this red icon, and it says Visit Affordable Housing Dashboard. And basically, when you click on that link, it takes you to the next slide, Corey. It takes you to a web page that looks like this, where basically you could see how many affordable housing units that programs like the Barnes Fund that I mentioned earlier, how many housing units are being built. And you can see here, if you have your binoculars, you can zoom in, but over 4,000 units have been funded through the Barnes Funds. These are over 4,000 affordable units. And it gives like a further breakdown of those units and how it's impacting in a positive way the community. You can also find a lot of data around, if you're interested, around affordable housing and folks that are cost burdened, for example. So this is just a sample, the image on the left that shows the housing cost burden of renters and owners. So you can see right now a snapshot of how many folks are paying more than 30% of their monthly income toward housing, and that's how we defined cost burdened. And it's broken down by renters and owners, so you can kind of see the difference. And when we look at this information, it's just some data that helps us to inform new policies and new housing programs. All this data gives us a baseline to understand what the need is for affordable housing and what policies we need to develop to try to address these issues. So I'm going to hand it back over to Andrea, who's going to talk about some of the other planning resources. I know there's a lot of interest in where can I find out more information about developments that are happening in my community, and some of these tools that are mentioned on the handout will help provide that information. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 4,000 units. The question was it 4,000 units since its inception? I believe that's what that number is, but I'd have to confirm with our housing folks.
Okay, so under resources, we have Hub Nashville. And so how many of you are familiar with Hub Nashville? How many of you have actually submitted a ticket to Hub Nashville? Okay, I really strongly encourage you to do so. If it's trash, if it's literally anything that you need through Metro, submit it through Hub Nashville, and then follow up. And if you need assistance, again, please let community plans know. Development tracker, how many of you have been driving by a development, you want to know what's going on, but you have no idea what it is, but you know the location? That's where you'll go to development tracker, and you can click on the parcel and click on the project, and it will tell you what's happening, and you can find out who's doing the project, the application, when it was submitted, when it's going to start. And so that's what you can find for development tracker. If it's something that's older than a year old, which a lot of these projects are now, they may have started, but they're actively working on them, or funding's been stalled or whatever. If it's something that's older than a year old, it's not gonna pop up on development tracker. It's gonna pop up on the specific plan viewer if it's a SP. And so that's another tool to use. And then if you just wanna know some basic information about who owns a parcel, tax information, just some basic things like what the zoning is or what the land use policy is, or maybe even it's who is your council member or who's your school board member. All that information can be found at Parcel Viewer. And so all that information is available literally at your fingertips. And it's also user-friendly for your phone. So if you're using your phone, you can also access that information. We got current and upcoming projects, and I don't know if this will touch on some questions. I also don't want to take away too much time from the other people that we have.
Last slide, right? Last slide.
I think this is the last slide, yeah.
AJ.
So current, you want to talk about current projects?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll start. So we have current upcoming projects. I'll start at the bottom and work the way up because I feel like the one at the top is probably going to be the one with questions. So and for transportation, for the gentleman who was asking about transportation, we are working with NDOT, and so there's the Vision Zero to increase safety. We are working on the countywide transportation plan, and so this is a different approach to where all three of the transportation entities within Davidson County are working together. So that's going to be WeGo, which is our transit authority, NDOT, which is the Nashville Department of Transportation, and then the planning department was working on the countywide transportation plan. So all those plans will be one document instead of three separate documents, which historically they have been. And then, of course, if some of you don't know, we're getting the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center, which is currently being built along Clarksville Highway now. It should be done in the spring of 2024. Housing, the Housing Unified Strategy, and activating vacant and underutilized property for housing. And Councilmember Gamble actually has a property in her community at Brick Church Pike. I've got that picture up here, community drop-in. So we had a meeting about that, Parkwood Community Center. And so this is a pilot program where we've looked at 2 properties, but I think there's some hopes that maybe more property will become available to look at potential options for how to reuse those buildings, whether it's for another community use or for housing. Okay. And then planning. We have the North Nashville Community Engagement, Jefferson Street Corridor Planning and Environmental Linkages Studies. And so for some of you that have been asking, it is connected to the CAP, but it is not just a CAP. And so that's what that planning, that's what the planning upcoming project is. And so we've got pictures of the new North Nashville Transit Center. I've got a few things about the tasks for the planning project, upcoming planning project, and then that upper picture is of the Parkwood Community Center.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Councilwoman Gamble had something.
Community know that you all want to hear from them and get input as we're looking at how to repurpose these buildings.
Yes, so at this particular building, we had a community meeting. We were there for several hours, for about half a day, and community members were allowed to come in and provide their input on like at least 10 or 12 different uses for what they would like to see, but then there was also an option to provide additional uses, and then we'll calculate that into what did the community say? Did they say I think in your case it was a library, housing, and a few other things. And so I think the library was the biggest thing the community wanted to see. And so that helps give us an idea of where we should go with future planning for these buildings, and encouraging community members to engage, because it really does matter.
And I would just add, for looking at these types of sites, we've done this historically, but last year, under Mayor Cooper's administration, we did receive 3 new positions in the planning department to kind of ramp up and expedite looking at more of these types of opportunities. Metro government owns land throughout the city and county, so we want to try to develop some strategies around how we can best look at those sites to meet community needs.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm very concerned about what's happening to a segment of our population in regards to housing that this is not very relevant to. This is all wonderful and good, and I'm glad to see the things that are taking place. But I started out in the courthouse, and Scott is here, my coworker. Tuesdays and Thursdays, now it's every day of the week. On many days, you will find the halls flooded with 200-300 people stuffed into courtroom 1A and 1B. I want to know what conversations are taking place. These are renters. What conversations are taking place in Metro government about how we better serve people that are in major crisis, living in pure desperation, with young children oftentimes. And the largest population of people being tossed to the wind are Black women with children and seniors over the age of 65.
I'll start, Todd. I think all of you know we are absolutely in a housing crisis, and so we got to start having conversations about different housing types. Everybody does not want a single-family home. We've got to have some other housing choices. And then the other piece is we've got to be okay with density. We're in a city where we can continue to go up in areas where it's appropriate. I understand it's not appropriate everywhere, but in areas where density can happen, we definitely need that to help absorb those people so that they can have housing. But I'll turn it over to Todd.
Thanks. Yeah, as Andrea mentioned, and I think as many folks in the room recognize that we are in a housing crisis, and particularly for very low-income families and individuals in the community. One of the things that our housing division is looking at, and this is already underway, is something that's called permanent supportive housing. So we're also looking at folks that are experiencing homelessness, which is a segment of our population that we really need to have some good strategies and provide housing security for those folks as well. So one of the permanent supportive housing projects right now that's happening is at Second and Gay in the Germantown area. And we want to look at more opportunities like that because I think there's still a lot of need to look at that.
Hold on, Rick. I got one question here as well.
I'm sorry.
I'm right here, Rick.
It's okay.
In listening to this and understanding the planning, how the zoning changed, how we're doing pizza, and we've been doing burgers and maybe chicken. To get us into the game here, we can't keep going over what's happening. We need to be in the game. Maybe we need to be a part of, like right now, we still got a lot of homes that are still in Nashville under the Black community. Maybe we need to stop right now selling any other homes until we can build 2 or 3 homes on our property. And then we can rent them out to people who are in need. So now that we know that we're playing a Yankee game with Yankee members, let's stop playing football and put on a baseball uniform so that we can play the game as well. Because just continuing to talk about zoning, continuing to talk about you're putting all these apartments in, but you're not even fixing the road so that all these people can go down the road. You're putting all this infrastructure in, but there's no new plumbing. To continue to just talk about it and not be in the game, that ain't what we should be doing, okay? So let's just stop selling our properties until we can put 2 or 3 houses on our properties and that we can rent them out to the people in our community who's in those courtrooms, okay? So let's just not even participate in the game until we can play and utilize this funding to make that happen. That we're in the game to participate, okay? Pastor Fuzz has put something great together in Nashville, absolutely great. But if we don't get anything out of it, then we're just coming to meetings. So in understanding this, now that we do understand it, Let's not sell another property until we can tear that house down for grandma, put 3 houses on there for grandma, and let grandma make some money off of it.
Thank you.
And I agree with that.
Okay. My question is just like a follow-up on what brother said, in that, and it goes back to what Reverend Fuzz spoke about with this houses all over the place in terms of as a tall and skinny, then you got a single family, 1-story. However, a lot depends upon our council persons. That they council persons make those decisions as well. You can get your property rezoned. And oftentimes, because mama and grandma ain't as sophisticated as developers, they don't get the councilmatic preference and reference, and therefore, those cannot maximize a return on their investment, like a house right next door is a tall and skinny, or a house that converted into 4 units, and an individual has a single family home, and he can't get a council person to agree to rezone because I guess because they're not a contributor to their campaigns.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that.
I think, do we want to let the councilwoman respond?
So I'll say that no one is entitled to a rezone. Whatever zoning exists on your property, if you purchase a property, whatever zoning designation is on there, that's what you're entitled to do by right. Now, I'll say that, I'll just use my district for an example. Every neighborhood is not the same in District 2. So for every rezone I do, I have a community meeting where people who live in the area can come and voice their opinions. You can have the same type of project that may get support in one part of the district that has no support in another part of the district. And I'm not bringing a project that doesn't have community support, because then I'm gonna have a whole gang of people show up for public hearing making me look crazy that I didn't listen to my constituents. Sometimes I've gotten requests from folks, well, 2 blocks away, they're doing this same project. Well, you're in the middle of a neighborhood street. That was on the corner of a major corridor. You're in the middle of a neighborhood street, so it doesn't fit that neighborhood. As someone who's had probably about 100 or so community meetings, I have a good sense of what people think in different areas of the district. And so it may be that you come to me in that initial conversation, I'm like, I know I'm not gonna have community support for that. And I've had people push back, well, I'm born and raised in the area, I know, and they come to the community meeting and exactly what I said was gonna happen happens. And so I don't know of any council member that approves rezones based off of campaign donations. That's actually offensive. We're all trying to do the right thing for our districts. And again, no one is entitled to a rezone. Whatever your property zone is, that's what you have a right to do. So if someone has an R6 zone and they put 2 houses up, you got that same R6 zoning, you could put 2 houses up. So I just want to put that out there. Everybody has each council member may have a different process of how they go about rezonings, but it is not, I don't know anybody who plays favorites.
I would just say too, with some of the tools that Andrea mentioned that's on the printout, so tools like the SP Viewer or Development Tracker, we're trying to constantly figure out new ways to communicate with neighbors about development and development or building activity that's happening in your respective neighborhoods. So if there are any recommendations that you have about how we can improve that communication so that folks are aware about just what's happening in your community, we'd love to have that conversation. And for rezoning questions, technical questions, we're a really growing department. We've doubled in size in the last 3 years, from 45 staff to 90 staff members. We have a lot of staff that are able to work with you, provide technical assistance. If you're not comfortable coming to our offices, we're happy to meet you in your neighborhood, have coffee. We have a lot of staff that are really dedicated to working with the community to help you. So I just want to offer that out.
I got to respond and add to what's been said over here. Because what April was saying is about allowing people to rezone their houses more readily. And you say, well, the zoning is what it is for the particular lot. Well, in the northern part of this country, a zone is for a whole neighborhood. You're zoning individual lots, and so this lot's this zone, this one's this crazy zone, this one's this, all next to each other. It's already, in some of the neighborhoods, extremely heterogeneous. I live in a nice white neighborhood not too far from here that used to be a black neighborhood, and before that it was a poor white neighborhood. And a lot of teeny little houses, 500 square feet, 1,000 square feet. Now the houses are 5,000 square feet. But next to them is a little 6-unit, low-rise brick apartment building, no different than what you might find in North Nashville, except the rent's higher. And I don't know what's happening to those, but they're building big houses next to them, and nobody seems to care. The $1 million houses are sold next to the little apartment buildings next door. This is Sylvan Park, but it's very expensive. Almost all the new houses they're building a separate garage in the back with a big second story and a staircase up to it. And these houses, almost all of them, there's 50 of them in Sylvan Park now. Hardly any of them are being rented out. They could be rented out, but they're not zoned for renting. I know some people renting them out, and they have to keep it quiet from the city, and that's how we're providing some housing. And I managed to get a guy I brought to town, a Ukrainian immigrant, into a garage for $1,000 a month, because that's the only thing he could afford in Sylvan Park. If we could allow more people to rent garages, the space over their garage, as long as it meets basic quality, why can't we do that in North Nashville too? And build more lots on every house. The zoning on a lot makes no sense. Zoning is for a district. Set the whole zone for North Nashville to be more dense, if that's what North Nashville wants. Okay?
So I will say rent is high in North Nashville too. I'm a North Nashville resident, and it's expensive to live here. We do have in North Nashville, Councilmember Taylor, District 21, passed the DADU overlay, which is detached accessory. Thank you.
Dwelling unit?
Thank you. Yes. And so you do have that ability to build, like, for example, if you have a 1-story single-family home, that overlay allows you to build a second home in the same footprint as the first home. If you have a 2-story home, you can build a 2-story accessory dwelling unit there. So we do have that tool. I think, and Todd and I have had these conversations, I think some of the hurdles are going to be people being able to finance to build that second home. And so those are the programs and the things and the conversations we need to keep having with the community to better utilize the land that the neighborhood does have. So we do have an accessory dwelling unit overlay on a very large, I mean, I can't tell you how many acres it is, but it's a very large portion, I believe from Jefferson Street all the way up to the Cumberland River. Like that, his entire district has an overlay where you can build accessory dwelling units. And we've had conversations where that would be wonderful to provide additional housing, with TSU having a housing shortage, Meharry and Fisk, the same thing. But I think it's going to be having community members gather together to identify those properties and finding ways to assist property owners to access financing to build that additional housing. Yes, we saw the 10-minute mark, we're sorry.
And yeah, I just building off of what Andrea said. So when we undertake in the next couple of months and we start kicking off the Jefferson Street North Nashville study, that's intended to be a community-driven effort. So if you have ideas about things that we ought to consider for zoning or land use that we should talk about, we'd love to have that conversation. We don't want to come into the community and say and tell y'all like what to do with your property. We want to hear from you what the issues are, and we'll work together and let us know how we can help you make changes to zoning if that's or land use if that's something you're interested in.
I'm so sorry. We're getting low on time. So what this beautiful lady has asked is that any other questions, send her an email so that she can get back to you. I know I do have Councilman Gamble that wanted to speak about something specifically. So I'm so sorry, but I wanted her to have a moment just to speak on something. But
Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for talking about what's going on in the planning department. It's very important that the community knows. Really briefly, I just want to tell you about a bill, BL 2023-120, that the Metro Council will be considering on second reading for a public hearing on at our February 4th meeting. This bill, which is coming out of the planning department, would basically amend Title 17 of our Metro zoning code, our Metro Code of Zoning Laws, to change the cluster lot option, which some of you may be familiar with. The cluster lot option was a zoning tool that was established in the 1990s in order for developers who are building subdivisions, residential subdivisions, in order to put more density in those subdivisions while also preserving open space. So it was a tool used to create more open space in our subdivision regulations. However, over the years, many people, residents and others, found that it wasn't an effective tool in preserving the kind of open space that we wanted. For example, what was happening is developers were using the cluster lot option to put more homes, more density on the property, and they were counting things like water retention ponds and things like that for preserving open space instead of having real, thoughtful, substantial open space. So what this bill does is establishes a new tool called compact development. And the purpose of compact development is to replace the cluster lot option where developers who are building subdivisions in the T3 transect areas, T3 and T4, which are suburban and urban areas, are able to use the downzoning of property. So if, for example, if a property is zoned RS10, which is residential, single family, 10,000 square lots, they are able to go down two zonings, which would be half, down to RS 5,000, which would be 5,000 square foot lots, if they maintain at least 15% of open space. And that open space is defined as recreational space, a walking trail, a greenway, something like that. So the new compact development bill establishes or defines what open space is, and it also allows that type of development in suburban and urban communities. So I have a handout here with more information and specifics about it, but just want to make sure that the community is aware of what the council is considering, because this is a major change. This is a change to our zoning code. I think it's a change for the better because it does define what open space is. It does allow for more density in those suburban, urban areas where we can get more housing, more affordable housing, and diversity of housing as well. We're looking at not just single-family homes, but townhomes, duplexes, multifamily homes, those kind of things. So this new zoning tool allows that. But please take a look at it, and if you have any questions, please reach out to your council member or the planning department, and we'll be happy to give you more information about it. But as I said, the bill is coming up for public hearing at our February 4th meeting.
Before you, while you're up here, I thought it'd be great for you to speak about, because before anything can be rezoned or anything changed, the Planning Commission has to approve or disapprove your request. So that means you have to go in front of the Planning Commission and propose your project. And so you're part of the Planning Commission as well as Metro Council. Metro Council makes the final decision. But before we go to Metro Council, if you could speak on what you see in the Planning Commission when you decide that you want to bring forth a development and how to best have the opportunity to get your development approved.
Thank you for that question, Jessica. And yes, I was recently elected as the chair of the Metro Council Planning Committee, and as chair of the Planning Committee, thank you. I'm excited we haven't had a black member of the council as chair of the Planning in over 20 years. I think Walter Hunt was the last black planning chair. But as planning chair, I also serve on the Metro Planning Commission, which Jessica said is the body that approves zoning, rezoning requests prior to it coming to the council office. So what I see, or what I hope to do or plan to do as planning chair, is make sure we have community engagement and keep the community aware of projects that are going on in this city, countywide, because that is important. You know, nobody knows what we want but us. And so we have to be involved, and we have to be aware and educated in order to tell people what we want, tell the city what we want, tell developers what we want. So that is my goal and purpose, as well as making sure that we're addressing infrastructure and transportation when we're looking at rezoning and where housing should be. There's have been calls for changing our zoning code, doing away with single-family zoning. That is some of the things that smaller cities are doing. For example, I was in Atlanta 2 weeks ago for a National League of Cities conference and learned there that Atlanta, a big city as it is, there is a housing crisis across this country. I mean, it's not just Nashville. And what they're doing is looking at repurposing metro land like we're doing, and looking at repurposing office buildings to build affordable housing. They have a goal of 20,000 units in 8 years, and they have over 2,000 acres of public land. So they're looking at that as opposed to changing their zoning laws to accommodate more growth, because what they are similar to us in that we're a big city. Well, I say they're similar to us that we were in a big city, whereas a smaller city like Decatur could change their zoning codes and do more like that.
All right.
Okay, I'm over. Okay, sorry.
Hey, real quick, I'm passing out business cards for any questions that didn't get answered. So if you have a question, raise your hand so I can get a card to you, okay?
All right, so before we get to Metro Council, because I want to save them for the ends, I wanted to be able to have community members that live in this area to be able to come up and just share a little bit about who they are and what development means to them, and kind of just some things that they have going on. So I'm going to bring up Taurus McCain.
Yeah, my name is Taurus McCain. I'm a native Nashvilleian. A lot of what you see on by Sweats, I had a lot to do with that. Buchanan Street had a lot to do with that. Salem Town had a lot to do with that. So I've been involved in redevelopments in the urban areas. But one thing I want to point out, both of you all had talked about keeping grandma in the house, keeping her where she can participate in the prosperity of Nashville. And I want to brag on my council lady here, Council Lady Toombs. Council Lady Toombs, like she said, rezoning is a request. So when developers who come in and want to make millions off our communities, Council Lady Toombs helped work with the Haynes Park community, and she stopped about $20 million worth of developments, and until they were able to show how the residents were going to benefit from the development. And one of the developments, the guy was able to list 70 homes, and then the developer added another 20 homes. That translates to about, this guy's gonna make about $800,000 off the sale of those properties. And that happened because the community came together. It's not just grandma. All her kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews all need to come to the council meetings and advocate for those changes. But, you know, working with the council, these council ladies are here for us. These black women are here for our black communities. That's one example. Just the other day, I was at a council meeting, a council a community meeting in Bordeaux where Council Lady Kimbrough went out her way to help someone who had a piece of property. I think she paid a little too much for it, and she's trying to do something with it. She went out her way to go over there and see what was going on, help this lady. So, you know, our council ladies are working for us, okay, for sure, okay? They are for sure. And, okay, I just wanted to say that. But also, I mean, I've just worked with her so often. I got a couple of stories to tell, but like the dadus that we have, and I see former council member Scott Davis in East Nashville. In East Nashville and in North Nashville, they passed a dadu, and at the housing fund, they allocated $750,000 for 5 people to get dadus built for them. They didn't have to qualify, non-recourse. So if it foreclosed, you don't lose it. And that was through the housing fund, and that was initiated also with the help of Council Lady Toombs. Okay, so we can get things done. We have to fight for them. And again, like I said, Sweat's over here, a lot of this development, half that stuff I own. When, you know, what concerns me the most is, and all of this development, most of this development you see over here, just happened in the last 10 to 12 years. So I look and project out, and I say, what is Nashville, definitely North Nashville, Bordeaux, going to look like in 10 years? Where are we going to be at? North Nashville, white population has increased by 8,000%. Okay, so what is that going to look like in another 10, 20 years? And so what I talked about, what I'm concerned about, is not just passing a transportation plan, but make sure that the plan that they pass allows us to stay in North Nashville. And to stay in North Nashville is not going to be us building single-family housing. That's gone. Land is too cheap. Land is too expensive, and it's sacred. Not sacred, scarce. Okay, because we just don't have as much left. So we're going to have to build density. And to build density, you need to have transportation. You got to have the transportation to move the people if you're building density. So the biggest thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is being more proactive in the community. And what they just talked about, the study that they're about to do, is kind of in line with what I'm proposing, is that we have to, again, this stuff happened not because Taurus came to talk to Council Lady Toombs. Taurus went and got other people who were saying the same thing that I was seeing and thinking, and we talked to Council Lady Toombs, because just me showing up at the meeting doesn't change anything. It's when we show up at the council meetings and they see us in the audience and see that we care, that's when things change. So that's basically what I'm saying, is that we can't just talk about it. We can't just get mad. We have to show up at the community meetings. We have to show up at the council meetings to make things change.
All right, next we're gonna have Richard Brown come up and speak.
Hello, everyone. Some people I know, some people I don't, but I'm originally from Oxford, Mississippi, and I've been in Nashville probably like 12 years. Being in Nashville, I work at Vanderbilt Medical Center as a respiratory therapist, but in my time in being here, I've kind of just seen Nashville grow. I was here when that flood happened, and I was actually in an apartment, but I'm not usually used to living in an apartment. So I bought 3 houses in my lifetime, and what I'm seeing now is that they're building these homes close together, so families can't be families anymore. Like, I live in a house now, and I'm in Gallatin, Tennessee. In my backyard, neighbor comes to my door and says, "Hey, your dog's barking too loud." Like, that's a dog. He's not a human. I can't help that he barks. You know, if he sees something, he's going to bark. He's a protector. So me and my wife, we kind of sat down and we started thinking, it was like, hey, how can we solve this problem? Because like man said, you know, land is super high and the housing demand, you know, is low. So we kind of proposed that we're putting in mind is that we can kind of go to the seller that has land and say, hey, can we do this option? We'll pay you for your land, but we'll do it over time, maybe 2 to 3 years over time, but we'll give you a down payment to say that we're serious, and then we can build a community that you have land that is useful. You know, you can get a 4-bed, 3-bath, 3,000 square feet, and you have 2 acres on that, you know, and that gives you possibilities for your family to come over. And then on top of that, multi-generational homes. So let's say there's a family of 4, but they want mama to stay with them. Well, mama have her 900 square feet home that has everything in it, bathtub, sink, and everything, and then you can still live with your family on the other side. And so if she needs a caregiver, that caregiver can go on that end of the home, and you can just check in every once in a while. So trust me, like I said, I might not be a true Nashville, and my wife is. She's from East Nashville. She couldn't make it today because she had to work, but we do see things in the perspective that y'all do. And I think most of what I'm hearing today is that most of y'all are family oriented, and that y'all feel like Nashville is pushing away from that. And I feel like if we want to keep Nashville the way it is and for it to grow, most people that are coming here are coming with families anyway, so they're going to need a place for family. These condos, all those are fine. Even with housing, affordable housing, there should be an option to where we're teaching these people that are in affordable housing to get out. So if you're going to live here for the next 3 years, I have a plan for you to say you need to increase your income, you need to increase your education, and then you should be out in the next 3 years. And if we all can come together, like I said, I know lives get busy, but if it's somebody that can take your place and go to these meetings and these conferences, please do so we can make a change. And that's all I have.
All right, we're moving through. The next we have Sharif, who does appraisals, because that is the most important thing as landowners, that you need to know and understand your values, and especially what does development do to increase or decrease your land values.
Good morning. My name is Sharif. I'm originally from Egypt. I'm not from the United States. I have been here like 18 years. If you do not understand my accent, please raise your hand. If more than 10 people raised their hands, I'm not going to repeat what I say. I'm just going to keep saying. I'm an appraiser since 2019, and I'm a realtor like 18 years ago. Also, I'm doing development, and I would like to start with an example with one of my projects. It's in Donaldson area. And when the Metro Council has a meeting, when the community members came, they determined exactly what should I do. So I just would like to respond to your word when you said we do not have to sell our houses. And I will take the Metro Council word saying a change is coming anyway. So it's all about how we control that change. If the community members came to the meeting, they're gonna determine exactly what they want. They told me, hey, try to have a gate with frontage bricks, and they forced me to the names that I have to pick to the subdivision I'm gonna have of 13 homes. They told me to have only traditional style with bricks, front bricks homes. So when you attend the meeting, you determine, you control the developer. You tell him what to do. Otherwise, we're going to refuse the project. So the Metro Council is not going to be able to pass the project terms until you accept it. I will move to another point when you said we have to keep the house, we have to keep the grandma in the house, okay? What if the grandma passed away? The house will be sold, right? And the reason why I'm here today is to know the value of your house and also to attend the meeting to the developer to determine exactly what he has to do. That is one point. Second point is, there is a gentleman here told us that we have to do a kind of district rezoning. He would like to do a kind of like an entire rezoning for the entire neighborhood. Here is an idea that came to my mind. When you sell your house by yourself to a developer who's gonna knock the door, saying, hey, I will offer this amount of cash money for your house to sell it. My idea is to get with your neighbors and try to sell not only one house. If you can get an agreement to sell like 4 or 5 houses, that will change the whole thing, probably to an SP, not to like HBR back to back, without any HOA, without any property management. So there is no regulation, right? But if you sold like 3 or 4 with SP, more than 11 units, I guess they have to have a property management, they have to have an HOA, and you have to control and draw exactly what you want in order to keep the area. Maybe your grandma's house is here and your house is like next block, right? So you're still gonna be a community member. So if you got with your neighbors in the community meeting saying, we decide to sell 3, 4 houses next to each other to the developer, and the developer has to follow our desires and our terms, and they have to get with an HOA company, with a property management company, in order to control exactly the area. We do not want like a short-term rental, because some people are gonna be so mad of the short-term properties. We would like no STR, no short-term rental. When you talk to the Metro Council about it, I think the Metro Council will work on it with the developer saying, hey, this area is not gonna be approved for STR, or this area will be approved for it. Does that make sense? Moving forward to another point, when you said that we can build an EDU, whoever just mentioned the EDU, accessory dwelling unit? Huh? Okay. Okay. And the accessory dwelling unit, if you decide to do it in the house, do not do an over improvement for it, please. Because when an appraiser gonna go to the house to appraise your property one day for refinance or for reverse mortgage or for selling the house, the ADU is not gonna be counted sale price per square foot same like the main dwelling. It's almost gonna be a third of it. So if single family home, let's say sale price per square foot is $200, the appraiser is not gonna appraise the ADU with $200 per square foot. Same thing for the finished basement. If you have a basement that's not finished yet and you decide to finish it up, do not do an over improvement for it. Because usually the below ground sale price per square foot is almost a third of the sale price per square foot for the above ground. Does that make sense? So I don't like when I go to a property and talk to the owner and the owner say, hey, my property is 2,000 square feet, 100 above ground and 100 below ground. And unfortunately, it's not gonna be in the appraisal report like that. It will be 1,000 above ground with a specific sale price per square foot and a totally different sale price per square foot for the basement. So do not over improve it.
We got more people. Thank you so much.
The last, before we finish the announcement, we want to hear from Metro Council, just to wrap it all up at the end, because that's where it falls. All this falls into Metro Council's hands at the end of the day, essentially. And so if you can just speak, and then we'll wrap up with announcements, and then we'll be in for any questions. But if we can have, we have 3 beautiful council ladies. So if anyone would love to share just what you see on the council floor, how to help people move through Metro Council, what do you look for, just any last little tips that you can give people to be able to have a successful winning solution in Nashville.
The best advice is to always start with the council person. Because if you're not going to have the support of the council person for your project, you're wasting your time. So even before you reach out to the planning department, you want to talk to the council person, because myself and others, we've had a lot of community meetings, so we have a good idea of what will be supported in our district. So it's best to start with the council person. You always want to engage the community. Myself and others, we host our own community meetings. Some council members have the developer to host the community meeting, but you always want to have that outreach to the community, because what you don't want to have is, with council, there are 3 readings for any type of rezoning. The second reading is a public hearing. You don't want to have a lot of community members coming out speaking against your project, because that perks the ears of the other council members. Because generally speaking, with rezonings, council members are going to defer to the council person for that district. If that person is in support of it, the rest of the council is going to support it. But if community members are popping up, sending emails, showing up at public hearing, complaining about a project, it perks the ears of the other council members that, hey, maybe something is going wrong with this project. So you do want to have that community engagement and be on one accord with the council member.
Okay, thank you everybody that's been here today. Jessica was her planning of this meeting this morning, and she went in her field. She did an excellent job. Next month is Jim Schulman, former Vice Mayor Jim Schulman, is putting together the forum for One Nashville. And I can look back over 6 years and see when that One Nashville began, and all over town, people know One Nashville, and I tell you, things do happen from this room. I want to acknowledge how many pastors are here this morning. If you'll just stand up and let me see. I'm kind of, when you get old, you can't remember stuff. You know, I know who you are, but I'm looking at people and I don't even know your name. Let me see, Curtis Bryant. We're going down to Safe Surrender. That's the way to get that in. Safe Surrender is a project that's sponsored by our district attorney back there. And Glenn was one of the first people to attend One Nashville. He came often, and people would come and they see Glenn Funk and the public defender and the judges, and they say, wow, I got to go to that. Something must be happening. One of the person who was at the first One Nashville meeting, you won't believe this, will you? Yeah, you can believe it. Listen, I want her to stand up. I want to acknowledge her because she's been a support all down through the years. Sometimes she just called me on Saturday night and said, I can't come to the meeting, I can't cook, but I can go to Kroger and get the breakfast. Joy Kimbrough. Joy was one of the first people at these meetings. And listen, one of the things I look out in the audience and I see that I've been blessed down through the years, that I've been able to walk and know and talk to people who would be in the history books. You know what I'm saying? These people, you know, and here I am sitting with them, and these are folk who would be in the history book or going to be in the history book, like Judge Robin Kimbrough Hayes, all right? Robin showed up about 30 years ago, didn't you? Yeah. Robin was a student. I was senior at Fisk over the SCA, and she came and said, I need to do some community service. Can I work with your Cub Scouts? So Judge Hayes was a Cub Scout mama or something like that. A den mother. And I remember her most down at Hadley Park doing the kites with the kids. And that kite never did fly, but she was there and made an impression on these young people. And then let me see another good project that I know is going on. We're doing like 100, and we've been doing this like 10 years with General Hospital. General Hospital says that One Nashville is the #1 supplier of volunteers to General Hospital in this community. Isn't that all right? So we got people like Carl back there who goes once a week, every week, and he delivers food to families in the community, and we've delivered probably something like 400,000 bags of food to families all over the Nashville community down through the years, and have been at task with that, and to see people like Taurus, who's making a difference. A-Roll, tell Lucy she did good, okay, from the Planning Commission. She thinks this is a prestigious meeting, so she said, I gotta be there. Gotta have this one young lady who comes from the same high school that I attended. So I know she bad, because the high school that I went to is some special place, okay? And I want y'all to see her first. Something else that happens here, Dr. Sandra, Hunter, okay? Dr. Sandra Hunter, been involved with us down through the years. And Sandra, you know, there was a little girl with sickle cell whose mother was killed last Saturday. And see, and this little girl is only like 10 years old, and you're gonna counsel her, okay, because that little kid needs some help. Sandra does that with all kinds of people for me. I call, and people who are in crisis, I call Sandra, and she says, okay, I'll go to them, I'll take care of them. She's some kind of psychologist lady or something like that. But she counsels, she saved lots of marriages. She goes to people who are in grief and stress. She's helped folk, and all we have to do is call. And these are the kind of folk who come to the table here, like Terry Clayton, old-time lawyer here in Nashville, making things happen. And my homegirl from my high school, Jim, is over there, Hora. He's one of the biggest people in this room. You wouldn't believe. He look like he's a nobody, don't he? Don't he look like nobody over there? Look like a homeless man. But Jim is is some guy. Hey, Stephanie, is that right? That's your name, Stephanie. Okay. Come here, Stephanie. Stephanie is going to be some kind of judge, right? What kind of judge are you going to be, Stephanie? Circuit court? So convince me in 10 seconds to vote for you.
Ooh. Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Reverend Fuzz, for that. Don't take that on my 10 seconds. Thank you for voting for me. My name is Stephanie Williams. I'm running for a judge of the 4th Circuit Court here in Davidson County. I've had the pleasure and honor to serve in this court as what I call a mini judge for the last 9 years under our last elected judge, who unfortunately passed this past September 2022. And so he prepared me for this moment. I prepared myself for this moment. I've been in family law for 20 years. I built my career off of representing people, providing them affordable, accessible advocacy through our courts. And I continue that in my work with the court, and I want to continue that. I want to model some of the things that Judge Haynes has done as it relates to bringing technology into our courts so that we can make our courts more accessible and affordable to our people that are working every day and can't afford to take off work and pay to come downtown and pay lawyers to sit in court for them. And so I'm very excited to be able to implement some things like that, as well as other things that will help our community. So I appreciate your support. I ask for your vote. This will be March 5th of 2024. It'll be part of the presidential primary Super Tuesday ballot. So thank you. Thank you, President Fuzz.
Y'all remember to vote for her. She's doing Color Purple also. She's with that movie, you know, bringing the screenings here for Color Purple. And then there's Rick Forberg, whose big issue is transportation in Nashville. But this guy he's at the level of expertise right now. And he comes to all of these One Nashville meetings. There's Kathy here with this League of Women Voters, okay? This guy over here with the health. What's the clinic called out in Bordeaux?
A dedicated senior medical.
Dedicated senior medical. Thanksgiving, they were giving out turkeys, and they didn't have enough people to come to get all these turkeys. They wanted to help folk, and Sandra, you need to get with that guy and touch him. Reverend, Janie Sterling, Reverend Janie Sterling does a lot of stuff, Black history, and I can go on and on. There's Kathy over there who teaches leaders. Okay, you need to build your organization. You need to get with Kathy Terrence. Is that my time up? Okay, who did I leave out? Philip back there. Where, Phil? Hey, that's the #1 developer in the room. Stand up, Phil. Let's acknowledge him. Stand up anyway. I know you shy and all that. But this guy builds houses, okay? And he wanted to be a part of this meeting this morning. Ludi Wallace is on duty. Ludi's always here. And then finally, Dr. Amos Jones. Listen, this is an icon. This is a historic man right here. He writes Sunday school literature. He writes books. He's the founder of the National Association of Christian Educators. They just finished building a school down in Jamaica for the little children down there. He sponsors a trip every year to Jamaica. Reverend J.J. Green goes with him every year. And then I should have started with Coach Maurice Fitzgerald because Pearl Cone High School just won the state football championship. First time since 2013 that Nashville won a state championship. That's the legendary Coach Maurice Fitzgerald. There's Bishop, Bishop, wave your hand, you know who I'm talking about. Manny Mitchell.
Okay, all right.
Oh, wait, the smartest man in Metro government. John. Isn't that John? John Honeysuckle, he's the smartest man in Metro government. He ought to be at least the deputy mayor, but we got to get the mayor to get his head right. Get your mind right, cuz.
All right, I want to thank everybody for coming out to One Nashville. We're about to close out. Jessica, you did a phenomenal job. Real quick, we have like a One Nashville steering committee that helps plan these events. If you're here, please stand up so people can see you. Yes, so these are the folks that are making it happen. I just want to say blessings on each and every one of you as we leave this place for this season. And remember, everybody's not jolly right now, so be kind to yourself and be kind to others and to this guy right here. And just a real last quick plug on Safe Surrender, because I'm on my way over there shortly. I'm the judge from 11 to 1. If you know anybody who has an outstanding warrant or even cost fees associated, an outstanding traffic ticket. I believe Joseph Day's staff is on task 2. Come on to Safe Surrender. Come between 11 and 1. I will be having on the Santa's hat, and I'll be handing out lots of gifts under the tree. I'm signing whatever comes before me. I'm giving out gifts from 11 to 1. I'm signing whatever comes before me. Last year, I waived like thousands of dollars in fees. I'm not even going to say amount, so please come by. And thank you all for coming out, and look for us next month. God bless you. Have a great day. Let's get out of here. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
And I'm gonna leave those with the social worker. Can you just give me all of them? All of them? No, the senior great. The senior thing. That, yeah. Let me have these. Because I'm going to...
Glenn Funk, could you come to the front, please?
Oh, well, that's why I'm going to give them to the social worker. Okay, yes.